Welcome to the Sewer Wealth Podcast, where we bring you the timeless wisdom of the world's greatest business and wealth-building books. In each episode, we break down proven strategies from legendary minds, so you can apply them to your own journey toward financial freedom and success. So, get ready to unlock the secrets of success, one book at a time.
It's amazing how those little things we do day in and day out, those habits, can really snowball into something massive, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's true for anything, but especially when we're talking about building wealth.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about here, trying to help our listeners get a better handle on their finances, make those smart money moves.
Right.
So we're diving back into James Clear's Atomic Habits today.
Right.
Last time we talked about making those good habits obvious, making them stick out, right?
Right.
Today, we're kind of shifting gears, looking at chapters 8 through 10, really trying to figure out how to make those wealth-building habits so attractive you can't resist them.
Yeah, it's all about that second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. I mean, it's pretty simple. The more appealing something is, the more we naturally gravitate toward it. And that goes for habits too, right?
Oh, for sure. But how do you make something like, budgeting actually sound fun?
Right.
Or like researching investments? That doesn't exactly scream excitement, does it?
Not always, no. But that's where Clear brings in this fascinating stuff from animal behavior, like Nico Tinbergen and his work with those baby herring gulls.
Oh yeah, the birds pecking at the red dot on their parents' beak to get food.
Exactly. But here's the thing. He started playing around with fake beaks. The chicks were even more drawn to the beaks with those bigger, brighter red dots. He even made one with like 3 huge red spots. Those chicks went bonkers for it.
Like he found some kind of cheat code, right?
Pretty much. And what it shows is that our brains, just like those chicks, are also wired for those really exaggerated rewards.
So we're talking about the triple red dot equivalent in the financial world. What are those things that might distract us? And how can we kind of create those same appealing signals, but for good financial habits?
Yeah, that's the key. And to understand it, we've got to go back to this idea of supernormal stimuli. It's like these exaggerated versions of reality that trigger this super strong response in us.
Okay.
Like way more powerful than natural cues.
So is that kind of what the food industry is doing with like all the junk food and stuff?
Oh, totally. Think about it. Our ancestors, right, they evolved where salt, sugar, fat, these things were hard to come by, like crucial for survival.
Makes sense.
But now we've got food scientists, and they're like masters at creating these crazy combinations of sugar, salt, and fat. They literally engineer them to hit those pleasure centers in our brains.
Like hitting the jackpot, right?
Exactly. That's our modern day supernormal stimuli when it comes to food. These hyper-palatable foods, they're like those big red dots for our brains.
It's crazy how much it's all connected. So what are some other examples of this in our lives that might, kind of pull us away from our financial goals?
Well, think about social media, for one.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Constant notifications, likes, all that validation.
Right.
They're like this concentrated dose of social reward.
Way more intense than real life, that's for sure.
Right. Or online shopping with endless options and instant gratification. These things are designed to be super appealing, and they can easily sidetrack us from those bigger financial goals we might have.
So it's like, just as those chicks went crazy for those exaggerated red dots, we can also get pulled in by things in the financial world, right?
Absolutely.
Like maybe it's the promise of, getting rich quickly with some risky investment or something.
That's a good example. Understanding how our brains are wired for this is really the first step to being able to manage it.
Yeah.
So
we know our brains love these big rewards, but how do we actually make those good financial habits just as appealing? Like, how do we rewire ourselves a bit? I mean, Clear talks a lot about dopamine, right?
Yeah.
I always thought that was just the pleasure chemical, but he says it's more about the wanting.
You got it. And that's a crucial distinction. You see, our brains actually have way more neural pathways dedicated to wanting a reward than actually liking it. Yeah, it's true. The circuits for wanting, they involve all these areas, like the brainstem, even the prefrontal cortex. It's a huge network. But those liking centers, much smaller, way more localized.
So, like, that urge we have to constantly check our investments or to, research that hot new stock tip everyone's talking about, that's actually driven more by the anticipation than by actually getting the reward.
Swingo, desire. That's the real engine of behavior. We take action because we're anticipating that reward,
Okay.
It's that craving, that feeling that something's missing that gets us moving. So to make wealth-building habits really stick, we've got to tap into that natural desire. And one way to do that is through temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. This sounds interesting.
Oh, it's a good one. It's basically pairing something you have to do with something you want to do.
Yeah.
Clearcheer uses this example of this guy who hooked up his stationery buck to Netflix.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so this guy, Ronan Byrne, he loved watching Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more.
I feel that.
So he basically rigged it so Netflix would only play if he was pedaling at a certain speed. Slow down, the show pauses.
Genius. Right.
Pretty clever. So, like, for someone who's struggling to, I don't know, save money consistently, what's a want they could pair with, say, tracking their spending?
Well, maybe they really enjoy that fancy coffee a few times a week. They could say, okay, after I log my expenses for 10 minutes, I can get myself that latte. You know, it's about setting up that immediate reward loop.
So it's like training your brain to see the good habit as part of the reward.
Exactly. Clear also talks about how ABC did this with their TGIT lineup. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. All those Shonda Rhimes shows on Thursday nights, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, all that.
And they were all about getting viewers to make popcorn, pour some wine, and just settle in.
Make it an event.
Exactly. So they were associating the behavior they wanted people watching their shows with things viewers already enjoyed.
Relaxing at home.
Yeah.
Having some treats.
Yeah. And over time, Thursday night became this cue linked to those pleasurable activities. So they basically made watching ABC on Thursdays a habit by making it attractive.
That's the idea.
Okay, so for our listeners who are really trying to get better with their finances, give us some more specific examples of how they can use this temptation bundling.
Okay, so we have that habit stacking formula, right?
Yeah, I remember it's like, after I do this, then I do that.
Exactly. It's after current habit, I will have it I need. After habit I need, I will have it I want. So maybe it's after I check social media, I'm going to track my expenses for just 5 minutes. Or after my morning coffee, I'll read one article about investing, and then I can check the news.
Right. So it's all about finding those things you already do regularly or enjoy, and then strategically linking them to those good financial habits you're trying to build.
Exactly.
Make it a 2-for-1 deal for your brain. Now, what about our social environment? I mean, Clear also talks about how our surroundings can influence what we find appealing, like that story about Laszlo Polgar, the guy who raised his daughters to be chess prodigies. That was wild.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating one. Polgar was convinced that genius could be developed with focused practice and the right environment. So he and his wife, they basically made their home this chess-obsessed world. Books, constant games, tournaments, you name it.
Wow.
And the crazy part is, his daughters, Susan, Sophia, and Judith, they actually loved it. For them, chess wasn't a chore, it was their life.
So it's really about the power of social norms, right? We all want to fit in, be part of something.
It's a basic human need, belonging to a group that was essential for survival throughout history.
Makes sense.
And that desire to connect, it influences our behavior, often without us even realizing it.
Okay, so Clear breaks down those groups whose habits we tend to imitate into 3 categories.
Right, does.
Let's start with the people we're closest to, family and friends.
Right, and they have a huge influence. Clear mentions studies showing that if a close friend becomes obese, your own chances of becoming obese go up. Yeah. And it works the other way, too. When one partner in a relationship gets into healthier habits, the other one often follows.
So there's like this, I don't know, unspoken pressure to match the people around us.
It's subtle, but it's there. So for building wealth, the message is clear. Surround yourself with people who have the financial habits you want to develop. People who save, invest, are mindful of their spending.
Gotcha. So if your friends are always talking about saving and investing, you start to see those behaviors as more normal, more attractive, right?
Exactly. Claire brings up Steve Cam and his nerd fitness community as a great example of this.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's this whole community built around fitness, which can make getting healthy more appealing because it feels like something people like you do.
You're all in it together.
Right. And that shared identity strengthens those individual habits.
Okay, what about the second group? The many, is that right?
Yes. The many, those broader social norms that kind of surround us.
The things everyone seems to be doing.
Exactly. And to show how strong this influence can be, Clear talks about those Solomon Asch conformity experiments. You familiar with those?
Vaguely. It's something about people choosing which line is the same length.
Right. And what Asch found was that when more people in the group gave the wrong answer, even if it was obviously wrong, the subject was more likely to doubt themselves and just go along with the group.
Wow.
It just goes to show how powerful that urge to conform is, even when we know better.
So how does that apply to our finances?
Well, think about following investment trends or feeling pressure to spend money on things just because everyone else is doing it. It can be hard to go against the grain, you know?
It's like that fear of missing out, right?
Exactly. But the good news is being part of a financially responsible group can actually make those smart money habits seem way more attainable.
Because it's the norm in your group.
Exactly. Okay, and the last group we imitate is the powerful.
The people we look up to.
Yes, those we see as having status, success, that kind of thing. We're naturally drawn to imitate them because we assume their actions got them where they are.
So like we might follow the investment strategies of some famous investor or try to copy the habits of successful entrepreneurs?
Exactly. We also tend to avoid doing things we think might lower our social standing, like getting into too much debt, for example.
So learning from those who have achieved what we want can make those wealth-building habits seem more attractive because we associate them with success.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about building good habits, but what about breaking those bad ones that are holding us back financially? Clear has this whole chapter on finding and fixing the causes. Like, how do we make those bad habits unattractive?
Right. It's like flipping the script. And he starts with this interesting example. Alan Carr, in his book, Easy Way to Stop Smoking.
I've heard of that.
Carr's whole approach is about dismantling the perceived benefits of smoking. He's like, smoking relieves stress. Nah, that's just the addiction talking. So by reframing that whole smoking experience, he's trying to make lighting up seem totally undesirable.
So it's about changing how we see the bad habit, changing our expectations.
Exactly. If we don't think a bad habit will actually benefit us, that craving should weaken.
Okay.
But Clear goes even deeper, talking about how those surface-level cravings often mask deeper desires.
Right. Like it's not just about the thing itself, but what it represents.
Exactly. Like that urge to buy the latest gadget. It might not be about the gadget itself, but about wanting social status or that fear of missing out.
Okay.
Our underlying motives are usually things like seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, fitting in with others, and conserving energy.
Right.
Our habits, both good and bad, are often how we try to address those deeper needs.
So that constant urge to check social media, that might be driven by a need for connection.
Exactly. And our brains are always predicting whether our actions will satisfy those needs, right? Our behavior is based on those predictions, not just reality.
Interesting. So it's not about the thing itself, but what we think it will do for us.
Exactly. Like, think about the smoking example again.
Okay.
A smoker sees a cigarette, and their brain predicts it'll relieve their craving and reduce stress. A non-smoker sees the same cigarette, and they predict it'll taste terrible and harm them. Same cue, different predictions.
Got it.
And that craving is essentially the feeling that something's missing. That desire to change our internal state to match those predictions.
Okay, so that's how we understand cravings. But how do we reprogram ourselves to actually crave those good financial habits? The ones that are harder, but ultimately way better for us.
Well, it's about consciously associating those habits with positive experiences. Sometimes a simple shift in mindset can make a huge difference.
Like what?
Like instead of saying, ugh, I have to track my expenses, try thinking, I get to understand where my money's going and take control of my financial future.
Yeah.
It's the same action, but reframing it highlights the benefit.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
You know, Clear tells this story about a person in a wheelchair who said they felt liberated, not confined by it. That's a powerful example of reframing.
Yeah.
It's about perspective, right? We can choose to focus on the sacrifices of good financial habits, or we can focus on the freedom and security they create. Saving money isn't deprivation, it's building options. Learning about finance isn't boring. It's gaining knowledge and skills that empower you.
It's like flipping the script in your head.
Exactly.
Now, what about Clear's idea of a motivation ritual? Linking a habit to something enjoyable. How does that work for our finances?
It's all about building positive associations. Let's say you always listen to a favorite podcast or a specific song before you sit down to review your budget.
Okay.
Eventually, that podcast or song can become a cue that triggers focus, even enjoyment for budgeting.
So it's like those experiments with Pavlov's dogs. They started salivating when they heard the bell, even if there wasn't any food.
Exactly. Ed Lattimore, he's a boxer and writer. He talks about how just putting on his headphones became a trigger for focused writing, even if he wasn't listening to anything. It was a learned association.
That's wild.
It is. It's about those consistent pairings, Like maybe you have a healthy snack after you finish reviewing your investments each week.
So it's like creating these little rituals that signal to your brain, it's time for this habit, and we're associating it with good feelings.
Exactly, like that happiness ritual Claire talks about, a deep breath and a smile before petting a dog. It's a simple but powerful example.
Yeah, I get it. By consistently pairing a neutral cue with a positive experience, you build an association.
Right.
So let's do a quick recap of this second law of behavior change.
Okay.
We make wealth-building habits more attractive with temptation bundling. Pairing what we need to do with something we want to do. We leverage our social circles by being around supportive people and understanding how social influences work.
Right.
And we tackle bad habits by reframing our thinking and creating those positive associations with the good habits we're trying to build.
Perfect summary. And next time, we're diving into the third law of behavior change. Make it easy.
Ooh, can't wait. Now, for our listeners, think about one financial habit you've been wanting to improve.
Yeah.
How can you make it more attractive?
Right.
Could you try temptation bundling?
Maybe find a community or someone you admire to learn from.
And how can you reframe how you see it to focus on the positive side?
Good question. And if you found this deep dive helpful and you're interested in learning more, we highly recommend James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Great book.
It's packed with practical tips and real-life examples to help you change your habits and really improve your financial life.
And we've got a link in the description where you can pick up a copy. Buying through our link helps support the show and keeps these deep dives coming.
So grab your copy and start making those good financial habits irresistible.
Awesome. So here's a final thought for you to ponder. In a world designed to grab our attention, how can you design your environment, your mindset, to make those habits that truly serve your long-term financial goals the most appealing option?
That's something to think about.
Definitely. Until next time, keep exploring and keep building those atomic habits that lead to big results.